Hello, everyone. My name is Sandy, and I'm a professional English teacher that works online with italki. I come from Scotland, it's part of the UK, and I'm a native English speaker, and I have been teaching English for several years now. If you're watching this, I expect you're looking at someone to help assist you with improving your English ability and maybe helping you achieve fluency. Well, look no further, because I'd be very, very happy to help you. What do I teach? Well, let me start by telling you what I don't teach. I don't teach basic English, and I don't teach children, but I do teach people with a minimum of A2 level and above, and we go into the various subjects that I help them with. I like my students to have a minimum of somewhere in the A2 bracket, and from there we can progress quite methodically and in good time to the various levels above, as long as the students are dedicated and want to achieve their goals and ambitions, which, if you're watching this, I assume you do. So the first aspect I'd like to talk to you about is taking a formal test, such as TOEFL or IELTS, CAE, CELPIT, or one of the many other tests that various institutions require that students take. Don't leave it to the last moment. Find out early what tests you've got to take, what results you need, and start thinking about it. Know what's required from the format for the test, and if you're going to need assistance, start seeking it and start getting ready as early as possible. The quicker you start, the more confident you're going to be on the day, and that's absolutely essential. Practice, practice, practice is what makes this test easy. I would strongly recommend that you take a mock test if possible, or get an experienced teacher, someone like myself, not necessarily me, but someone like myself, who can actually assess you and guide you to what's going to be required to get to the grade that you want to be at on the day you take the test. Now, you may think I'm just trying to get students, but that's not the case, actually. I'm trying to give good advice here in this video. And what I would strongly recommend is to listen to this advice. You can go online, and you can pay a lot of money taking all these various tests and preparing you and making no problem. And you're just going to get a lot of PDFs to read, a lot of videos to watch, and you're not getting any direct feedback in any significant way that's going to assist you. When I teach my students, I'm on their back all the time. I want to know what they're doing. I want to see what they work. I want to give them the feedback that they require, and if they need to change, they can change early, etc. It doesn't mean to say that you're going to need a whole lot of lessons. Most of my students don't. Initially, maybe we do one a week for a few weeks. But not only am I giving them a lot of speaking practice online, but I'm also guiding them on their listening, their reading, and their writing, which are all important aspects that's got to be addressed. If you're weak on any of them, then we need to try and improve them. I have met students that have taken the test several times, a lot of money spent, and after each failure, they're thinking, okay, I'll book it again, and maybe next time the questions will be better for me, and I'll stand a better chance. It's a bit crazy, huh? Better that you're ready to address any type of test or any type of question, and then in your own heart, you'll be confident that you can actually speak English to the grade required. The most important aspect to this test taking a test is for you, the student, to be fully committed to getting a pass in that test, getting your confidence level so high that on the day of the test, you're not worried about it at all. You're at ease. You go in, you're fully confident, you take a deep breath, and you get on and you get the test behind you. That's the way it should be. And I can help with that. So let's move on to our next topic, folks. And that is teaching conversational English. This is an area that I'm very regularly asked to assist with. And it's surprising, that many of the students that ask me to assist with this can actually I've studied English in great depth, many of them, and they are quite competent in English, in writing, reading, and listening. But when it comes to actually conversation, this is a problem for them because they haven't had any real opportunity, even during the learning period, to actually stand and be able to get involved in English conversations. So their confidence level is actually very, very low. But it's an area that's quite easily rectified. But once again, it takes dedication from the student side to really want to do it. And if they put the dedication into it, then that confidence level can come back fairly quickly. So the curriculum I've designed is to help my students develop their English skills and confidence, vocabulary and grammar, etc., as quickly as possible. I want them to have the confidence to effectively communicate in English. The way we achieve it is in a variety of activities and exercises that focus on different aspects of conversation. These include the vocabulary, grammar, pronunciation, listening, comprehension, and conversational strategies. So vocabulary building is the first area that we've got to work on. And this is done through a lot of homework activities, actually, such as reading, writing, listening, watching videos, listening to blogs, etc., and really immersing themselves in some English every day. When they need to speak out, when they want to practice a word, I ask them to speak aloud and, if possible, record themselves and listen to their pronunciation, etc., if it sounds good to them. Pronunciation is a very important aspect. You know, you can know the words, but if you don't get your pronunciation right, even though you understand what you're saying, if your pronunciation is not right, it can spoil the whole effect of your conversation. So we have to work on getting your pronunciation right. The next important part, of course, in conversation is listening. You've got to be able to understand what's being said. And we practice that intensely also to get you better to listen and understand the various accents and everything. So when people are speaking, you do know what's being said. Also, we want to talk about conversational strategies, giving opinions, asking and answering questions, maintaining the conversation, and how to respond to others. At our online lessons, these are primarily devoted to developing conversation skills between us. We can start off slow if it's required, talking and slower so that it's easier to understand, but then slowly increasing to normal conversation speed. I know the majority of students, although they may understand many things, but when native English speakers or people with a good command of English conversation start speaking, and they start speaking a little bit too quickly, then it can become difficult to follow. I understand that. But the more confidence you have, then the better it will be that you can follow these conversations. Okay, now I'd like to talk about some business English. Teaching business English, I come from an engineering, sales and marketing background and have spent many years working in senior roles. I have a lot of experience in personnel management, business administration, project management, consultancy work, etc. So I believe I have already given much in-depth training to a lot of people in the business sector. Teaching business, I usually concentrate on the following: business vocabulary, familiar with all the terms and jargon of these in various industries. It's a positive aspect to be able to present to students. Business correspondence, including official letters, emails, etc., sales quotes, specifications, all these aspects I can cover if required. meetings and presentations, how to effectively communicate in these scenarios. Negotiations, how to communicate effectively and persuasively during these type of negotiations. Telephone and video conferencing, various protocols, etc., that should be adhered to in these areas. And of course, business culture. Very important to understand cultural differences and how they can affect business interactions. But as I always tell people, business English is only the icing on top of the cake, and it's the cake itself that's important, and that requires your English vocabulary, grammar, etc., to be up to standard as well. So we also look at that and we assist where necessary. So that is business. This last part that I'm going to talk about in this video is I'm going to block some things together, and these are job and internship type interviews, presentations, self-presentations, and also public speaking. All these aspects, they kind of all go together because it's the areas that a lot of students kind of dread. So let's just cover these briefly, and if you do need assistance, then I'd be glad to help. It's a certain time of the year, you know, I think it's around July, August, that I get a lot of students looking for assistance in doing their presentations, self-presentations, and getting themselves ready for interviews, etc. This is an absolute critical part of the year, and the majority of my students, not all, but the majority have done very, very well, applying for careers and internships with big major national companies in different parts of the world. And the majority of them have been very successful. And why? Because they start the preparation long before. They do their homework, they do the research, that we put together the documents and the presentations, and then they practice them and they condense them, expand them, and really get them top line. Because, you know, when you go into an interview or a presentation, what's one of the first questions that they ask you? It's, tell me something about you. Even though they're sitting with your CV in front of them on the desk, they want to hear you tell them about your studies or experience to date, and go into it and convince them that you know what you're talking about. There's a lot of aspects to this now, and things are changing every year a little bit, and you've got to be on top of it all. But it's, as I say, it's important to plan out the way you're going to talk, the way you're going to give your presentation, and then really work at it so it sounds good. You know, if you answer that question, tell me something about you, you can already, if you've practiced it and written it, you can negate all the questions that they were planning to ask you. And you can more or less make their minds up in that first few minutes of the interview because you give them such a good presentation. If you don't do it and you give a bad presentation, then you probably made their minds up at the beginning of the interview as well. So you need to work at it for sure. Now then, when we talk about this, these sort of aspects, once again, vocabulary rates very highly. Having a good vocabulary, knowing how to use it, and having it in your mind, etc. Once again, pronunciation. Getting the pronunciation absolutely spot on is also a very key area in this aspect. Grammar and sentence structure. Get these right. You've got to have them written out. You've got to know the sentence structure, the grammar, and have them practiced, as I said. And of course, very important is listening, answering questions, and speaking. These aspects are absolutely critical to any interview. And I just want to add, we're talking about English here, but many of my, say, Chinese students, they've used exactly this formula that I've taught them, and we've gone through together, that when they've gone for interviews with Chinese companies, and they've used this and been very successful with major Chinese companies as well, speaking in Chinese, but using the same structures that I teach them and practicing the same way. So there it is. Public speaking, yes, this can be a little, I've helped some very senior figures in the world, in government, etc., to improve their government speaking, their public speaking, sorry, and even help them write their presentations and practice their presentations, even for people doing their thesis for their PhDs, etc. I've helped them with the English and the preparation in them as well. So that is a review of my experience to date, and I feel good about it. I enjoy what I do, and I've got a lot of good friends from past students that we keep in regular contact. We're more than teacher-student relationships now. We're friends and family-type relationships. So why don't you join me? Contact me on IELTS, and let's have a talk about what you're planning. I'll be pleased to help. Thank you.